discovery and disbelief. The vast expanse of space stretched out before the Zephyrian research vessel, Stardancer. Its sleek, crystalline hull glimmered softly in the light of a distant binary star system. Inside, Chief Scientist Lyra Vox hunched over a holographic display, her four eyes narrowed in concentration. Her scaled fingers danced across the interface, sifting through mountains of data collected from their latest planetary survey. "Another dead end," she muttered, her voice tinged with frustration. For cycles, the Zephyrians had scoured the galaxy, searching for clues to their origins. Their own world, Zephyria, held no answers, its history a blank slate beyond a certain point. It was as if their entire species had simply appeared. Lyra's assistant, Zorn, slithered up beside her, his serpentine body coiling around a nearby data terminal. "Perhaps we should consider the eldership's theory," he suggested cautiously. "That we truly are children of the cosmos, born from stardust and—" "Fairy tales," Lyra interrupted, her secondary eyelids blinking rapidly in irritation. "We're scientists, Zorn. There must be a logical explanation for our existence, and I intend to find it." As if in answer to her determination, a ping echoed through the lab. Both scientists turned their attention to a flashing alert on the main screen. "Anomalous energy signature detected," the ship's AI announced. "Origin: subsurface structure on Novus Prime." Lyra's heart raced as she pulled up the data. Novus Prime was an unremarkable planet they'd almost passed by, its surface a desolate wasteland. But beneath, it's artificial, she breathed, studying the scans. And old. Incredibly old. The next few days were a blur of activity. The Stardancer touched down on Novus Prime's barren surface, and a team of researchers, led by Lyra, began excavating the site. What they uncovered defied imagination. A vast underground complex, its architecture unlike anything in known Zephyrian records. As they delved deeper, Lyra felt a growing sense of unease. The technology they encountered was simultaneously familiar and alien. Some systems activated at their touch, as if designed for Zephyrian physiology. Others remained stubbornly inert. It was in the central chamber that everything changed. A massive holographic projector hummed to life as they entered, bathing the room in soft blue light. And there, hovering before them, was an image that sent shockwaves through the entire team. The creature was bipedal, with smooth skin and a head crowned with filamentous growths. Its body lacked the elegant scales and multiple limbs of Zephyrian anatomy. Yet there was an undeniable connection. In the curve of its skull, the placement of its eyes, Lyra saw echoes of her own species. "Greetings, children of Zephyria," the hologram spoke, its voice resonating in a language that shouldn't have been comprehensible, yet was. "If you are seeing this message, it means you have finally found your way home." Lyra's mind reeled. Home. This desolate world. The hologram continued, each word shattering her understanding of reality. "We are humanity, your creators. Eons ago, we seeded the stars with life, shaping worlds and species to thrive where we could not. You, the Zephyrians, were among our greatest achievements." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some researchers fell to their knees, overcome by the revelation. Others, like Zorn, backed away in denial. Lyra stood rooted to the spot, her scientific mind warring with the earth-shattering implications of what she was hearing. Why? She found herself asking. Why create us, and then leave? The hologram's expression softened. The universe is vast and full of wonders, but also dangers. We sought to nurture life that could adapt and thrive in environments hostile to our own form. But direct intervention risked stifling your growth, your potential. So we withdrew, watching from afar, hoping that one day you would find your way back to us. As the hologram faded, Lyra was left with more questions than answers. If humans were their creators, where were they now? And what did this mean for the future of Zephyrian society? The journey back to Zephyria was tense. Debates raged among the crew, whether to share their discovery or bury it. Lyra argued passionately for transparency, even as she grappled with her own doubts and fears. Upon their return, the news spread like wildfire. The Zephyrian eldership convened an emergency session, broadcast planet-wide. Lyra stood before them, presenting the evidence with scientific precision, even as her voice trembled with the weight of its meaning. "We are not alone," she concluded. "We are not cosmic accidents. We are the children of a species called humanity, and they are out there among the stars." The reactions were as varied as they were intense. Some embraced the revelation with religious fervor, seeing humans as gods to be worshipped. Others recoiled, feeling their identity as a species had been stolen from them. Protests erupted in major cities, with factions arguing for and against pursuing contact with their supposed creators. Amidst the chaos, Lyra retreated to her laboratory. She pored over the data they'd recovered, searching for any clue to humanity's current whereabouts. As she worked, a realization slowly dawned on her. The technology they'd discovered wasn't just a relic, it was a key to unlocking potential within Zephyrian biology that they'd never known existed. With trembling hands, she initiated a gene sequencing protocol. As the results filtered in, her eyes widened. There, woven into the very fabric of Zephyrian DNA, was an unmistakable pattern, a signature, proof of intelligent design that went beyond mere evolutionary processes. "They really did make us," she whispered to the empty lab. But with this knowledge came a new question, one that filled Lyra with both excitement and dread. If humanity had created the Zephyrians, what other species might they have birthed among the stars? And more importantly, were they still out there, watching, waiting for their children to find them? As the first hints of dawn broke over Zephyria's capital city, Lyra made a decision. She would not rest until she uncovered the full truth of their origins. And if humanity still existed somewhere in the vast expanse of space, she would find them. Little did she know, forces were already in motion that would bring that meeting about far sooner than she could have imagined. For in the darkness between the stars, other children of humanity stirred, some with intentions far less benevolent than the Zephyrians. First contact and revelations. The Zephyrian scientific community was in an uproar. Months had passed since Lyra Vox's groundbreaking revelation about their species' origins, and the planet was still reeling from the implications. Research teams across Zephyria scrambled to analyze the data from Novus Prime, each breakthrough bringing more questions than answers. Lyra herself had become a reluctant celebrity, her scaled face plastered across news broadcasts and holo-billboards. She despised the attention, preferring the quiet solitude of her lab. It was there, surrounded by humming equipment and flickering holoscreens, that she felt closest to unraveling the mystery of humanity. "Dr. Vox," Zorn's voice crackled over the intercom. "The eldership is requesting your presence. Immediately." Lyra sighed, her secondary eyelids blinking rapidly in annoyance. These summons had become all too frequent. She made her way to the Grand Assembly Hall, its soaring crystal arches designed to evoke the majesty of deep space. The eldership, 12 of Zephyria's most esteemed leaders, sat in a semicircle before her. Elder Thax, his scales dulled with age, leaned forward. "Dr. Vox, we've received a transmission. Origin unknown, but the linguistic patterns match those from the Novus Prime archives." Lyra's heart raced. "You mean?" "Yes," Thax nodded gravely. "We believe it's them. Humanity." The next few hours were a blur. Lyra and a team of xenolinguists pored over the transmission, decoding its contents. As the message took shape, a chill ran down her spine. "Greetings, children of Zephyria," the message began. "We have observed your progress with great interest. The time has come for a reunion. Prepare for our arrival." Coordinates followed, along with a timestamp. Humanity would arrive in Zephyrian space within days. The news sent shockwaves through Zephyrian society. Some celebrated, seeing it as a divine homecoming. Others stockpiled supplies, fearing invasion. Lyra found herself caught in the middle, her scientific curiosity warring with a deep-seated apprehension. As the appointed time drew near, a fleet of Zephyrian ships gathered at the designated coordinates. Lyra stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Cosmic Seeker, her gaze fixed on the starfield before them. Suddenly, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. A ship emerged, unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. It was massive, easily dwarfing their entire fleet. Its hull seemed to shimmer, as if not entirely solid. Lyra's scientific mind raced, trying to comprehend the level of technology required for such a vessel. "This is Captain Ilara Chen of the Earth ship Prometheus," a voice crackled over the comm. "We come in peace, seeking dialogue with our long-lost children." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing hearts. "This is Dr. Lyra Vox of Zephyria. We welcome you, creators." The docking procedure was tense, both sides unsure of protocol. As the airlock cycled, Lyra found herself face to face with the first humans she'd ever seen in the flesh. Captain Chen led a small delegation, their expressions a mix of wonder and apprehension that likely mirrored Lyra's own. "You've grown so much," Chen said softly, her eyes roaming over Lyra's scaled form. "When our ancestors first seeded your world, we could only hope you'd thrive like this." The next few days were a whirlwind of cultural exchange and scientific revelations. The humans shared glimpses of their history, tales of a species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times, only to claw its way back from the brink. They spoke of climate catastrophes, world wars, and a final desperate push to the stars. "We knew we couldn't survive as we were," explained Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the Prometheus's chief cynobiologist. "So we embarked on the greatest experiment in our history. We seeded dozens of worlds with genetically engineered life, each species designed to thrive in environments we couldn't hope to colonize ourselves." Lyra's mind reeled at the implications. "You mean, we're not the only ones?" Tanaka nodded. "The galaxy is filled with our children. Some, like the Zephyrians, have flourished beyond our wildest dreams. Others—" She trailed off, her expression darkening. As the days passed, Lyra found herself growing close to the human scientists, particularly Tanaka. They spent long hours in the Prometheus's labs, comparing notes on Zephyrian and human biology. Lyra marveled at the ingenuity of her creators, seeing how they had taken the basic building blocks of their own DNA and reshaped it to form her species. But not all Zephyrians were as accepting. Protests erupted in major cities, with some decrying humanity as meddlers who had robbed them of their autonomy. Others formed cult-like groups, worshipping the humans as gods returned. It was during one such protest that tragedy struck. A group of extremists, calling themselves the True Zephyrians, launched an attack on the human delegation during a public appearance. In the chaos, shots were fired. Captain Chen fell, crimson blood staining her uniform. The aftermath was tense. The humans retreated to their ship, tensions running high. Lyra found herself acting as a mediator, desperately trying to salvage the fragile peace. "You have to understand," she pleaded with Tanaka. "This is all so much for my people to take in. We've built our entire identity around being a self-made species, and now—" Tanaka's expression softened. "We understand, Lyra. Perhaps better than you know. Humanity has grappled with questions of our own origins for millennia. But we can't simply leave now. There's so much more at stake." It was then that Tanaka revealed the true reason for humanity's return. "We didn't just create you out of scientific curiosity, Lyra. We needed you, all of our children." She pulled up a holographic display, showing a vast web of galaxies. At its center pulsed a malevolent red mass. "We call it the Void, a cosmic anomaly that devours everything in its path. Stars, planets, entire civilizations, gone. We've been fighting it for centuries, but we're losing ground." Lyra stared at the display, her scientific mind grappling with the scale of the threat. "What can we do against something like that?" Tanaka's gaze was intense. "Alone? Nothing. But together. Lyra, Each of the species we created was designed with unique abilities, adaptations that could be key to fighting the void. The Zephyrian's natural affinity for energy manipulation, for instance, combined with human ingenuity and the strengths of a dozen other species. We might stand a chance, Lyra finished, understanding dawning. The next few days were a flurry of diplomacy and revelation. The Zephyrian eldership was informed of the void, shown evidence of its destructive power. Debates raged, but in the end, the threat was too great to ignore. A historic treaty was signed. Zephyria would join Earth and its other children in a galactic alliance against the void. But it wouldn't be a simple matter of falling in line behind their creators. The treaty established the Zephyrians as equal partners, with a seat at the table in all strategic decisions. As the Prometheus prepared to depart, Lyra found herself saying goodbye to Tanaka. The human scientist handed her a small device, a quantum entanglement communicator, she explained. For direct contact, we'll need your expertise as we prepare for what's coming. Lyra took the device, feeling the weight of responsibility it represented. I still have so many questions, she admitted. Tanaka smiled. As do we, Lyra, but we'll face them together, as family. As the Prometheus shimmered and vanished back into the depths of space, Lyra turned to face her fellow Zephyrians. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges both scientific and existential. But for the first time since the revelation of their origins, she felt a sense of purpose. They were no longer just creations, adrift in the cosmic sea. They were part of something greater, a family of species united against a common threat. And Lyra was determined to ensure that the Zephyrians would play their part in the battles to come. Little did she know, those battles would arrive far sooner than anyone had anticipated. For even as the alliance began to take shape, the tendrils of the void were reaching out, probing for weaknesses in the fabric of space-time itself. Tanaka smiled. As do we, Lyra, but we'll face them together, as family. As the Prometheus shimmered and vanished back into the depths of space, Lyra turned to face her fellow Zephyrians. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges both scientific and existential. But for the first time since the revelation of their origins, she felt a sense of purpose. They were no longer just creations, adrift in the cosmic sea. They were part of something greater, a family of species, united against a common threat. And Lyra was determined to ensure that the Zephyrians would play their part in the battles to come. Little did she know, those battles would arrive far sooner than anyone had anticipated. For even as the alliance began to take shape, the tendrils of the void were reaching out, probing for weaknesses in the fabric of space-time itself. Threats emerge and alliances form. The moons of Zephyria cast an ethereal glow over the capital city as Lyra Vox made her way through the winding corridors of the newly established Interstellar Cooperation Center. In the months since humanity's revelation, the planet had undergone a profound transformation. Ancient rivalries between Zephyrian nations had been set aside in the face of a greater purpose, and the entire world now buzzed with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Lyra's lab, once a quiet sanctuary, now thrummed with activity. Holographic displays flickered with data streams from a dozen worlds, each representing another of humanity's created species. She marveled at the diversity. Crystalline beings from ice worlds, sentient gas clouds from gas giants, and creatures that defied easy classification. Dr. Vox, a voice called out. Lyra turned to see Zorn slithering towards her, his scales shimmering with excitement. We've just received a priority transmission from the Altarians. The Altarians, a species of energy beings from a distant nebula, had been among the first to join the alliance against the void. Lyra activated the quantum entanglement communicator, and a shimmering form coalesced before her. Greetings, Scientist Lyra. The Altarian's melodious voice resonated. We bring grave news. Our long-range sensors have detected void activity at the edges of the Cygnus arm. It's expanding faster than our models predicted. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. How much faster? The Altarian's form pulsed with distress. At current rates, it will reach populated systems within a galactic year. The implications were staggering. They had believed they had decades to prepare, not mere months. Lyra's mind raced, calculating probabilities and potential countermeasures. "Thank you for the warning," she managed. "I'll alert our leadership and the human command immediately." As the transmission ended, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Lyra rushed to the central command center, her heart's pounding. The room was in chaos, with Zephyrian officials and a handful of human liaisons gathered around a massive holographic display. Elder Thax's voice cut through the din. "Silence. Dr. Vox, explain what we're seeing." Lyra stepped forward, her scientific training kicking in as she pushed aside her fear. The void's expansion has accelerated dramatically. But more concerning is this. She manipulated the display, zooming in on a particular sector. These energy signatures, they're not random. There's a pattern. A human scientist, Dr. Evan Chen, leaned in, his eyes widening. "It's almost as if it's intelligent," Lyra finished. "The void isn't just a cosmic phenomenon. It's alive. And it's hunting." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled leaders. Debates erupted, with some calling for immediate evacuation of threatened systems, while others argued for a more measured approach. Amidst the chaos, Lyra's communicator chimed. It was Dr. Tanaka from the Prometheus. "Lyra, we've received your data. The Council of Worlds is convening an emergency session. We need you here." Within hours, Lyra found herself aboard a sleek human transport vessel, hurtling through space at speeds that left her breathless. The Council Chamber, located on a massive space station at the heart of human territory, was a marvel of engineering. Representatives from over a dozen species gathered, their forms as varied as the worlds they hailed from. Captain Ilara Chen, fully recovered from the assassination attempt, stood at the center. "We face an unprecedented threat," she began. "The void is not just expanding, it's adapting. Our worst fears have been realized. We're dealing with a sentient cosmic entity, one that sees our existence as a threat to its own." Holograms flickered to life, showing simulations of the void's advance. Systems winked out one by one, devoured by the encroaching darkness. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices and translated alien languages. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "We can't fight this through conventional means. We need to combine our knowledge, our unique adaptations. The humans created each of us with specific strengths. It's time we use them together." Her words sparked a flurry of ideas. The crystalline Frustellans propose using their natural ability to manipulate subspace to create barriers against the void's advance. The gaseous Nimbulans suggested dispersing their consciousness across vast networks to gather and process data at unprecedented speeds. As the council debated, alarms blared. A frantic technician burst into the chamber. "The void, it's opened a rift. A tendril has breached the Orion spur." The holographic display shifted, showing a writhing mass of darkness tearing through space. In its path lay a populated system, New Eden, one of humanity's oldest colonies. Captain Chen's voice rang out. "We need to evacuate New Eden immediately. But we also need to study this incursion up close. It may be our best chance to understand how the void operates." Lyra felt a surge of determination. "I'll go," she volunteered. "The Zephyrian ability to manipulate energy fields might give us an edge in containing the rift, at least temporarily." A chorus of voices joined her, representatives from other species, each offering their unique skills. Within moments, a joint task force was assembled. As they rushed to prepare, Lyra found herself working alongside beings she could scarcely have imagined mere months ago. The journey to New Eden was tense. Lyra spent the time poring over data, collaborating with scientists from a dozen worlds to formulate a plan. As they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, the sight that greeted them was terrifying. The void's tendril writhed in space, a mass of utter darkness that seemed to devour light itself. Around it, the fabric of reality buckled and warped. New Eden's sun had already dimmed, its energy being siphoned away. "By the ancestors," Zorn whispered, his serpentine form coiled tightly in fear. Lyra steeled herself. "We knew the risks. Now let's get to work." The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Evacuation ships streamed from New Eden's surface as the task force ships took up defensive positions. Lyra worked with Frostellan scientists to establish a subspace barrier, while Nimbulon data processors analyzed the void's energy patterns. But it wasn't enough. The barrier buckled under the void's relentless assault. Lyra watched in horror as entire continents on New Eden were swallowed by creeping darkness. "We need more power," she shouted. "If we can't stop it, we need to at least slow it down long enough to complete the evacuation." It was then that an idea struck her, desperate, possibly suicidal, but their only hope. "The Zephyrian energy manipulation," she breathed. "We can use it to redirect the planet's core energy. Create a feedback loop." The human and alien scientists stared at her in shock. "That could tear the planet apart," Dr. Chen warned. "Better destroyed than consumed by the void," Lyra countered. "And it might give us valuable data on how the void reacts to different energy states." With no other options, the plan was put into motion. Lyra and a team of Zephyrian scientists took a shuttle to New Eden's surface. As they worked to tap into the planet's geothermal network, the ground shook beneath them. The sky above was a roiling mass of darkness, punctuated by flashes of eldritch energy. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, her entire being focused on the task. She could feel the planet's energy flowing through her, raw and primal. With a final push, she redirected it, sending a massive surge towards the void's tendril. The result was both beautiful and terrifying. New Eden's core energy collided with the void in a spectacular eruption of light and darkness. The planet shuddered, great chasms opening across its surface. But for a crucial moment, the void's advance slowed. "Now," Lyra shouted into her communicator. "Full evacuation. We won't get another chance." As the last ships fled the doomed world, Lyra watched from her shuttle's viewport. New Eden broke apart, its fragments scattered to the cosmic winds. But in its death throes, it had bought precious time and invaluable data. Back aboard the command ship, the mood was somber. They had saved many lives, but an entire world had been lost. Yet as the scientists pored over the data from the encounter, a glimmer of hope emerged. "Look at these energy readings," Dr. Tanaka pointed out. "The void recoiled when exposed to the planet's core energy. It's not invincible. It can be hurt." Lyra nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to take this data back to the Council. If we can replicate this effect on a larger scale." As the fleet regrouped and set course for home, Lyra found herself staring out at the stars. The void's tendril had withdrawn for now, but she knew it would be back. This was just the beginning of a war unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. But as she looked around at the diverse beings working together, humans, Zephyrians, and a dozen other species united in purpose, she felt a surge of hope. They had been created for this moment, each species a unique piece of a cosmic puzzle. The void may have been hunting them, but they would not go quietly into the night. They would stand together, creators and creations alike, against the encroaching darkness. And in that unity, Lyra knew, lay their greatest strength. As the ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying with them the knowledge gained at such a terrible cost, Lyra made a silent vow. They would find a way to stop the void, not just for the Zephyrians or for humanity, but for all life in the galaxy. The true test of their alliance was yet to come. But for the first time since learning of the void's existence, Lyra allowed herself to believe that they might just have a chance at victory. Battle for survival and adaptation. The galactic calendar marked one standard year since the fall of New Eden. But for Lyra Vox, it felt like an eternity. The Interstellar Cooperation Center on Zephyria had transformed into a hive of frenetic activity, with scientists and strategists from across the Alliance working around the clock to develop new defenses against the void. Lyra stood before a holographic representation of the Milky Way, its spiral arms dotted with pulsing red markers indicating void incursions. The situation was grim. Over a dozen systems had been lost, and the void's tendrils probed ever deeper into populated space. "Dr. Vox," a voice called. Lyra turned to see Dr. Evan Chen, the human scientist she'd worked closely with since New Eden. His face was haggard, dark circles under his eyes betraying the sleepless nights they'd all endured. "The latest simulations are ready." They moved to a secure chamber where representatives from various species had gathered. The air was thick with tension as Evan activated the display. A complex web of energy fields and subspace distortions flickered to life. Based on the data from New Eden and subsequent encounters, Evan began, "We've developed a theoretical model for a large-scale energy barrier. By combining Zephyrian energy manipulation, Frostellan subspace technology, and Alterian quantum field generators, we might be able to create a shield capable of repelling void tendrils." Murmurs of hope rippled through the assembly, but Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The power requirements would be astronomical," she pointed out. "We'd need to tap into the energy of entire stars." A Nimbulon representative, its gaseous form shimmering with agitation, spoke up. "Our analysis suggests a 68.7% chance of success, but with a critical flaw. Such a barrier would be static, unable to adapt to the void's increasingly intelligent attacks." The room erupted in debate, various factions arguing for and against the plan. Lyra felt a headache building behind her eyes. They were running out of time, and still no closer to a definitive solution. Suddenly, an alarm blared. All eyes turned to the main display as a massive void tendril erupted into real space, tearing through the defenses of a key Alliance outpost in the Carina Arm. "It's Outpost Omega," Zorn reported, his voice tight with fear. "They're requesting immediate assistance." Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comms. "All available ships, move to intercept." "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." What followed was chaos. Lyra found herself aboard a hastily assembled task force, a mix of ships from various species hurtling towards the conflict zone. As they dropped out of FTL, the scene that greeted them was one of nightmare. The void tendril writhed in space, larger than any they'd encountered before. It lashed out at the defensive platforms surrounding Outpost Omega, consuming matter and energy alike. Alliance ships darted around it, their weapons seeming pitifully inadequate against the cosmic horror. "All ships, form up," Chen's voice rang out. "Deploy experimental weapons. Let's see if our research pays off." Lyra watched from the science station as the Alliance fleet unleashed its latest innovations. Frostellan ships projected subspace bubbles, attempting to isolate portions of the void. Alterian vessels fired beams of concentrated quantum energy, while human ships launched swarms of nanite-infused missiles designed to disrupt the void structure. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The void tendril recoiled, its advance momentarily halted. But then, to Lyra's horror, it adapted. The subspace bubbles were absorbed, the quantum beams refracted harmlessly, and the nanites were simply devoured. "It's learning." Lyra breathed, her heart's racing. "Every attack we throw at it, it analyzes and counters." As Alliance ships began to fall, their hulls crumpling under the void's assault, a desperate plan formed in Lyra's mind. "Captain," she called out, "I have an idea, but it's risky." "At this point, Dr. Vox, I'm open to anything," Chen replied grimly. Lyra's fingers flew over the console as she explained. "The void adapts to our attacks, but what if we could use that against it? We need to overload its ability to process new information." Working with a team of multi-species scientists, Lyra hastily reprogrammed the fleet's weapons systems. "Fire everything," she ordered, "but randomize the energy signatures. constantly shift frequencies, weapon types, attack patterns. Don't let it predict anything. The result was a dazzling, chaotic light show. Energy beams of every conceivable type crisscrossed space. Subspace distortions rippled and warped. Exotic particles and antimatter bursts flared against the void's darkness. For agonizing minutes, it seemed to make no difference. But then, almost imperceptibly, the void's movements became erratic. Its tendrils lashed out wildly, no longer with purpose but in confused desperation. "It's working," Zorn exclaimed. "The void can't process all the conflicting data." Lyra allowed herself a moment of hope. "Now, while it's disoriented, all ships concentrate fire on the central mass." The combined firepower of the Alliance fleet lanced into the heart of the void tendril. With a silent, reality-warping implosion, the cosmic horror collapsed in on itself. A cheer went up across the comms as the remnants of the void dissipated into harmless energy. But the victory was short-lived. As the fleet regrouped, assessing damages and rescuing survivors from Outpost Omega, long-range sensors lit up with multiple alerts. "By the ancestors," Zorn whispered. "It's happening everywhere. Void incursions across a dozen sectors. It's as if it was testing us." Lyra finished grimly. "This was just a probe, to analyze our defenses and strategies." The realization hit the Alliance hard. They had won a battle, but at a terrible cost. And the true war was only beginning. In the days that followed, the Interstellar Cooperation Center became a hub of frantic activity. The data from the battle at Outpost Omega was dissected, analyzed, and used to refine their strategies. But for every advancement they made, the void seemed to be 2 steps ahead. Lyra found herself working around the clock, pushing the limits of Zephyrian physiology. She coordinated with teams across the galaxy, synthesizing knowledge from a dozen alien cultures in a desperate race against time. It was during one such marathon session that a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young Frostellan scientist, its crystalline form glittering with excitement, burst into Lyra's lab. "Dr. Vox, we've been approaching this all wrong," the Frostellan chimed. "We've been trying to fight the void, to push it back. But what if we could communicate with it instead?" Lyra's initial skepticism gave way to intrigue as the Frostellan explained. By analyzing the complex energy patterns of the void's movements, they had discovered what appeared to be a form of language, a cosmic code underlying the very fabric of reality. "If we can decipher this language," the Frostellan continued, "we might be able to reason with the void, to understand its motivations." The idea was met with mixed reactions. Some saw it as their best hope for peace, while others warned of the dangers of trying to communicate with such an alien intelligence. But with their options dwindling and more systems falling to the void each day, the Alliance leadership gave the green light to the project. Lyra found herself at the forefront of this new initiative, working alongside linguists, physicists, and even philosophers from across known space. They pored over data from every void encounter, searching for patterns, repetitions, anything that might give them insight into the cosmic entity's thoughts. Weeks turned into months. The void's advance slowed, as if it too was studying them in turn. Lyra's team made incremental progress, deciphering fragments of the cosmic code. What they discovered was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "It's not just a language," Lyra explained to the assembled Alliance leadership. "It's the underlying code of reality itself. The void, it's not destroying our universe, it's rewriting it." The implications were staggering. The void wasn't a malevolent force bent on destruction, but a cosmic programmer, reshaping reality according to its own inscrutable logic. Their very existence, the space-time continuum as they knew it, was little more than outdated software in the void's eyes. As the Alliance grappled with this revelation, a new crisis emerged. Long-range sensors detected a massive void incursion, larger than anything they'd seen before, heading straight for the heart of human space, Earth itself. The call to arms echoed across the galaxy. Every available ship, every weapon, every scrap of technology was mobilized for the defense of humanity's homeworld. Lyra found herself aboard the flagship of the combined fleet, the culmination of their year-long cooperation. As they approached the Sol system, the sight that greeted them was beyond imagination. The void had taken form as a vast, shifting geometric pattern, its edges bleeding into higher dimensions. It dwarfed planets, its tendrils reaching out to envelop entire moons. All ships, battle formations. Captain Chen's voice rang out, steady despite the gravity of the situation. Remember your training. We are the last line of defense for Earth and all our worlds. We cannot fail. Lyra stood at her station, surrounded by the finest minds the Alliance had to offer. As the battle began, ships darting and weaving through the void's ethereal form, she focused on the cosmic code they'd deciphered. We need to broadcast on all frequencies, she ordered. Not just our weapons, but our message. Let's see if we can make it understand. As the fleet engaged the void in a dance of light and shadow, energy beams crisscrossing the void of space, Lyra's team transmitted their carefully crafted message. It wasn't in any spoken language, but in the very rhythms of quantum fluctuations and subspace distortions. For agonizing minutes, there was no response. Ships fell to the void's power, entire squadrons blinked out of existence. Earth itself began to dim as the void's influence reached out to envelop it. And then, miraculously, the void paused. A pulse of energy, unlike anything they detected before, washed over the fleet. In that moment, Lyra felt a presence in her mind, vast and alien, yet somehow familiar. Images flashed before her eyes. The birth of stars, the death of galaxies, cycles of creation and destruction on a scale she could barely comprehend. It's communicating, she gasped. As the strange communion ended, the void began to retreat. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed. It pulled back from Earth, its tendrils withdrawing from the system. Cheers erupted across the fleet, but Lyra remained silent, her mind reeling from the contact. They had averted destruction, yes, but this was far from over. They had opened a dialogue with a cosmic force beyond their understanding, and the real work was just beginning. As the Alliance fleet regrouped, assessing their losses and marveling at their unlikely victory, Lyra knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The boundary between creator and creation had blurred. Humanity, the Zephyrians, and all the other species stood on the brink of a new era, one where they would have to redefine their place in a universe far stranger and more wondrous than they had ever imagined. The void had retreated, but it wasn't defeated. It was waiting, watching, perhaps even learning. And Lyra was determined to be ready for whatever came next. A new era of galactic cooperation. The glittering spires of New Alexandria, Earth's capital, stretched towards the stars as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an unprecedented summit. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and the alliance that had formed in desperation had evolved into something far greater. Lyra Vox stood at the entrance to the Grand Assembly, her scaled form a stark contrast to the variety of species filing in. She caught sight of Dr. Tanaka and Captain Chen, now revered as heroes of the Void War, deep in conversation with a group of Altarian energy beings. Quite a sight, isn't it? A familiar voice chittered. Lyra turned to see Zorn, his serpentine body adorned with the insignia of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. Indeed, Lyra agreed, her 4 eyes taking in the scene. Who would have thought, all those years ago, when we first discovered that artifact, that we'd end up here? The Grand Assembly was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Its transparent dome, crafted from Frostellan crystal, allowed the gathered delegates to view the stars above. The chamber itself was a triumph of multi-species design, with areas suited to every form of life in the Alliance. As the delegates took their seats, a hush fell over the crowd. At the center of the assembly, a holographic projection flickered to life. It was a representation of the void, but not as the terrifying force they had once known. Now it appeared as a complex, ever-shifting pattern of light and dark, beautiful in its alien complexity. Elder Fax, his scales now dull with age, but his eyes sharp as ever, stepped forward to address the gathering. "Fellow sentients," he began, his voice amplified throughout the chamber, "we stand at a crossroads in galactic history. 5 years ago, we faced annihilation. Today, we face a future filled with possibilities beyond our wildest imaginations." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Lyra felt a swell of pride as Fax continued, recounting the incredible journey that had led them to this moment. The desperate battles, the breakthrough in communication, and the gradual, tentative understanding they had begun to forge with the cosmic entity they once feared. Through the tireless efforts of our scientists, led by the brilliant Dr. Lyra Vox, Fax nodded in her direction, causing Lyra's scales to flush with embarrassment. "We have made significant strides in deciphering the cosmic code of the void. What we've learned has reshaped our understanding of the universe itself." Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, taking over the presentation. Holographic models sprang to life around her, depicting mind-bending concepts of multidimensional space and quantum realities. "The void, as we've come to understand it, isn't a destroyer of universes, but a custodian of them. It exists across multiple realities, maintaining the cosmic balance on a scale we're only beginning to comprehend." Lyra watched as the assembled delegates leaned forward, captivated. Even after years of study, the true nature of the void remained a subject of awe and wonder. "Our conflict," Tanaka continued, "arose from a fundamental misunderstanding. The void perceived our reality as an anomaly, a glitch in the cosmic code that needed to be rewritten. Our communication breakthrough allowed us to demonstrate the value and uniqueness of our existence." Captain Chen took the floor next, her presence commanding respect from every species present. "But this understanding comes with great responsibility. The void has, in essence, granted us stewardship over our corner of the multiverse. It's up to us to maintain the balance, to ensure that our adventures into the cosmos don't disrupt the greater universal harmony." As Chen spoke, Lyra's mind drifted to the incredible advancements of the past 5 years. The Alliance, born of necessity, had blossomed into a true interstellar civilization. The combined knowledge of a dozen species had led to technological leaps that would have once seemed like magic. Zephyrian energy manipulation techniques, combined with human ingenuity and Frostellan crystal technology, had revolutionized faster-than-light travel. Altarian quantum communications allowed for instantaneous exchange of information across vast distances, and perhaps most importantly, their growing understanding of the cosmic code was opening doors to realms of science previously unimagined. Lyra was snapped back to the present as a new figure took the center stage. Siel, a representative of the Nimbulans, its gaseous form shimmering with barely contained excitement. "Esteemed colleagues," it began, its words translated seamlessly for all present, "today we propose the next great step in our journey. The Galactic Concordat." A holographic document materialized in the air, its text scrolling for all to see. Lyra leaned forward, her heart's racing as she read. The Concordat proposed a formal, unified government for all allied species, not a homogenization of cultures, but a true cooperative where each species' unique strengths and perspectives would be valued and utilized for the greater good. Furthermore, Shield continued, the Concordat includes provisions for responsible exploration and expansion. We have been given a great gift, the knowledge of our place in the cosmic tapestry. It is our duty to use this knowledge wisely, to explore and grow without disrupting the delicate balance the void maintains. The chamber erupted in discussion, delegates from every world debating the merits and challenges of such an ambitious proposal. Lyra found herself drawn into a heated but respectful debate with a group of human and Frostellan scientists, discussing the potential applications of their combined knowledge. As the summit progressed, Lyra was struck by how far they had come. The fear and mistrust that had once divided them had given way to genuine curiosity and mutual respect. Yes, there were still disagreements and cultural clashes, but they were handled with a spirit of cooperation that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. On the final day of the summit, the votes were cast. Lyra held her breath as the results were tallied. When the announcement came, it was met with a roar of approval that shook the very foundations of New Alexandria. The Galactic Concordat had been ratified, ushering in a new era of unified exploration and discovery. As the celebrations began, Lyra found a quiet moment to slip away. She made her way to an observation deck, gazing out at the star-filled sky. So much had changed since that day in her lab on Zephyria, when she had first uncovered the truth of her species' origins. Heavy thoughts, old friend. Dr. Tanaka's voice broke through her reverie. The human scientist joined her at the window, a warm smile on her face. Lyra chittered softly, a Zephyrian expression of contentment, just reflecting on our journey, from created beings to co-custodians of the cosmos. It's overwhelming at times. Tanaka nodded, her eyes twinkling. I know the feeling. There are still days I wake up and can hardly believe how far we've come. But then I look at all we've accomplished together, and I'm filled with hope for the future. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden flurry of activity. Alarms blared, but not with the urgency of a threat. These were tones of excitement, of discovery. Captain Chen's voice echoed through the station. All senior personnel to the command center immediately. We're receiving a transmission from beyond the galactic barrier. Lyra and Tanaka exchanged a look of wonder before rushing to respond. In the command center, they found a crowd gathered around a central holographic display. The image it showed was like nothing they had ever seen, a swirling vortex of colors and shapes that seemed to defy the laws of physics as they knew them. It's a message, one of the Altarian scientists announced, its form pulsing with excitement. Encoded in the cosmic language we've been studying. It's an invitation. As the message was decoded, Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. The entities behind this transmission claimed to be from another universe entirely, one where the laws of physics were radically different from their own. They had detected the Alliance's communications with the Void and were reaching out in a spirit of cosmic fellowship. The implications were staggering. Not only were they not alone in their universe, but they were part of a greater multiverse, a tapestry of realities all maintained by forces like the Void. As the assembled leaders debated how to respond to this incredible contact, Lyra found her scientific mind racing with possibilities. The challenges of communicating across universal boundaries, the potential exchange of knowledge with beings whose very existence operated on different principles, it was exhilarating. In that moment, Lyra realized that their journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The Galactic Concordat was not an end goal, but a stepping stone to something far greater. They stood on the brink of becoming part of a cosmic community beyond anything they had imagined. As the debates raged on and plans were made for a response to their extra-universal contactees, Lyra slipped away once more to the observation deck. She gazed out at the stars, but now she saw them with new eyes. Each point of light wasn't just a distant sun, but a gateway to new discoveries, new understandings. She thought back to that day in her lab, when she had first discovered the truth of the Zephyrians' origins. The fear and uncertainty she had felt then seemed so distant now. Yes, they had been created by humanity, but they had grown far beyond their creator's original designs, and humanity, in turn, had grown and changed through their interactions with their children. Creator and created, parent and child, teacher and student, all these boundaries had blurred. What remained was a tapestry of sentient beings, each unique, each valuable, all working together towards a greater understanding of their place in the cosmic order. As Lyra stood there, contemplating the infinite possibilities that lay before them, she felt a profound sense of peace. Whatever challenges the future held, whatever wonders or dangers awaited them in the vast multiverse, they would face them together, united not by fear or necessity, but by an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and a deep respect for the cosmic balance they now helped to maintain. The stars beckoned, And Lyra Vox, once a simple Zephyrian scientist, now a key figure in a galactic alliance poised to take its place in a cosmic community, was ready to answer their call. The next great adventure was about to begin, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead them. As she turned to rejoin her colleagues, to add her voice to the plans being made, Lyra allowed herself a moment of reflection. From a created species to creators in their own right, from fear of the unknown to embracing it, their journey had been extraordinary. And the best was yet to come. The future, vast and unknowable as the void itself, awaited. And together, they would meet it head-on, united in their diversity, stronger for their differences, ready to write the next chapter in the grand cosmic story.